The assassination of a king, head of state, queen, or other global leader has the potential to send shockwaves throughout a country. On the morning of April 14, 1865, John Wilkes Booth, a famous actor, a Confederate sympathizer, and a vigorous supporter of slavery, learned President Abraham Lincoln would attend a comedy show that night at Ford's Theater, a theater Booth frequently performed at. He realized his time to restore the victory of the South had come. That night, he pulled the trigger, assassinated the nation's beloved president, and shocked the entire nation. Now, you might astonish to know that Lincoln's murder was part of a larger plot to decapitate the government. But to which extent is it the truth? Welcome back to Binge History, where we will be speaking about the night Lincoln got assassinated. Make sure to subscribe to our channel for more content just like this one and turn on post notifications. With all that done, let's travel back in time to witness this tragic event. Abraham Lincoln was the 16th President of the United States of America and was one of the most outstanding political leaders in the world. Lincoln made extraordinary efforts to gain knowledge while laboring on a farm, cutting rails for barns, and running a store in New Salem, Illinois. In addition, he served as a major in the Black Hawk War, served in the Illinois Senate for 8 years, and traveled the circuit court for many years. His law partner William Herndon states of him, his dream was a small engine that had no rest. Booth, a Maryland native, was an outspoken Confederate sympathizer throughout the war. As a pro-slavery fanatic, he felt Lincoln was hell-bent on overturning the Constitution and destroying his beloved South. Following Lincoln's re-election in November 1864, Booth hatched a plot to abduct him and transport him to Richmond, where he might be bartered for some of the Confederate captives held in northern prisons. According to the history, that was the reason for Lincoln's assassination. When Booth learned that Lincoln would see Laura Keene's critically praised production of Our American Cousin at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. on April 14, he devised a scheme even more devious than a kidnap. He and his accomplices believed that assassinating Lincoln, Vice President Andrew Johnson, and Secretary of State William Seward, the president and two probable successors, at the same time would throw the United States government into chaos. The Lincolns were late for the comic. However, the president was said to be in good humor and laughed hysterically throughout the performance. Lincoln, his wife Mary Todd Lincoln, a teenage Army officer named Henry Rathbone, and Rathbone's fiancée Clara Harris, the daughter of New York Senator Ira Harris, sat in a private box above the stage. That was a typical day for Lincoln, but he didn't know that this would be the last day of his life. Booth was a participant of one of America's most illustrious acting families. His younger brother, Edwin Booth, was widely considered the region's leading actor. Booth was a well-known entertainer known for his charisma, agility, and striking good features. He was born and raised in Maryland's border state, but he became renowned as an actor in Richmond, Virginia, and regarded himself as a Southerner. Furthermore, he was a staunch supporter of the slave system. Despite promising his mom that he would not serve the Confederacy, his hate for abolitionists and Lincoln grew. At 10:15 a.m., Booth crept into the gallery and shot Lincoln in the back of the head with his .44 caliber single-shot Derringer handgun as he shouted, "Revenge for the South." After slashing Rathbone in the shoulder, Booth rushed onto the stage and said, "Sic semper tyrannis," or "Thus ever to tyrants," the state motto of Virginia. He then ran across the stage and toward the back of the theater. The audience initially mistook the growing drama for part of the show, but a shriek from the First Lady convinced them differently. Then, despite breaking his leg in the fall on the stage, Booth left the theater and rode away from Washington. Booth claimed in a written note some days after the assassination that he exclaimed "Sic semper" before firing to dramatize history. In any scenario, Booth went out of Washington into the night, eventually meeting up with Harold in Maryland, who had left the scene of William Seward's assassination without their other accomplice, Lewis Powell. After Booth shot President Lincoln, many people felt a theater was not a proper place for a president to die. Hence, soldiers carried Lincoln from Ford's Theater and across 10th Street so that he could pass his last moments peacefully, surrounded by those who knew him best. Not long after, he died in the Peterson family's boarding house at 7:22 a.m. on April 15, 1865. Hence, Booth remained successful in his plan to assassinate Lincoln, but these killers had to pay the price for the cause. As the country mourned, Union soldiers pursued John Wilkes Booth, whom many in the crowd had identified instantly. He and a companion, David Harold, crossed the Anacostia River and proceeded towards southern Maryland, a town called Surrattsville. The two came to a halt at the house of Samuel Mudd, a doctor who had helped Booth with his broken leg. Mudd was sentenced to life in prison, although eventually commuted. They took shelter with Confederate agent Thomas A. Jones before getting a boat to paddle over the Potomac to Virginia. On April 26, Union troops encircled and set fire to the Virginia farmhouse where Booth and Harold hid, intending to ferret out the fugitives. Harold gave up the fight, but Booth stayed inside. A sergeant hit Booth in the neck as the fire grew hotter, ostensibly because the murderer had lifted his gun as if to fire. Booth remained for 3 hours after being carried out of the basement alive, staring at his hands and saying, "Worthless, useless." On July 7, 1865, 4 of Booth's co-conspirators were found guilty and hanged for their roles in the assassination. They contained David Harold and Mary Surratt, the first woman to be executed by the federal government, whose boarding house had functioned as a meeting point for members of the Underground Railroad. The news of Lincoln's killing spread swiftly. They can't imagine that their leader is being assassinated. By the end of the first day, flags from across the country were flying at half-mast. Shops were shuttered, and citizens who had just celebrated the end of the Civil War were now reeling from the shock of his assassination. Lincoln's remains were transported to the Capitol Rotunda on April 18 and laid in state atop a catafalque. His remnants were loaded onto a train 3 days later and transported to Springfield, Illinois, where he had resided before he became president. During the train's mournful journey through the North, thousands of Americans crowded the railroad tracks to show their appreciation for their slain leader. On May 4, 1865, Lincoln and his son, William Wallace Lincoln, who died of typhoid illness in the White House in 1862, were buried at Oak Ridge Cemetery outside Springfield. Mary Todd Lincoln was so distraught that she spent weeks in bed, missing the funeral. Because of her outspoken sadness, she was quickly shunned by society. The assassination of President Lincoln understandably aroused widespread and deep concern for the country's immediate destiny. He had been such a prominent figure in the horrific tragedies of the last 4 years, and the government's action in combating the rebellion had been so imprinted by his personality and character. He had come to command the confidence and love of the entire people, regardless of political affiliation, that his abrupt departure from the scene of events naturally caused anxiety and wariness in the mind of the public. But, on the other hand, he does appear to have been required to finish the tremendous work of pacification that he had started so brilliantly. We hope you liked this video. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel without any delays. Also, please make sure you turn on the post notifications and let us know about your views on the night Lincoln got assassinated in the comments section. Thank you for watching Binge History. Until the next time we meet, continue learning and stay healthy.